Hey, it's Tyler, host of the Tyler Knows Everything podcast, where the nose is crossed out because I always want to learn more. My guest today actually does know a little bit of everything about Lumberton and Hardin County, or at least tries to be the first person to know, and then share that valuable information with all the citizens. Please welcome Adam Brooks.
Tyler
knows
everything.
And hot news is always worth a follow-up. Here it is.
All right, Adam, but thanks for coming on, man. When I first started, putting this podcast together, I had a list of people that I really wanted to get on, and since the beginning in the planning phases, you've always been on that list. So,
oh wow, that's awesome.
You're so busy, the logistics purposes take a little bit longer to get someone like you on. So
Sure.
I'm glad we can finally sit down.
I am too, Tyler. And I didn't mean for it to take this long. It's just like you said. Sometimes it's just hard to stay busy.
Yeah, I mean, breaking news. 15 minutes before I'm on my way here, and there's a major power outage, and you've already got it posted online with information.
Right.
So.
Well, I can't take credit for all that. We have a good group of folks that like to keep me informed so I can keep everybody else informed. So
say we spend an hour recording, how many notifications are you going to have on your phone by the time we?
Well, as you see it lighting up now, I have about 5 since we just started. So
yeah. Well, I was on the side of town where the power did go out, and I immediately ran outside to check the sky. Unfortunately, it was cloudy, but if you ever have a power outage and it happens to be a clear sky, it's amazing for the astronomy purposes.
Sure. And I know you're a science guy, and I love science too, but, my knowledge is about this much, know.
Right. Yeah, you could go out on a night like this, if it's clear, and see the Milky Way, what look like clouds. You could see planets. We can't see nothing tonight, though. So.
Sure, and you're a member of the, what is it? What is it called?
Yeah, so it's called the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. They meet, it's actually this coming Friday. It's the second Friday of every month at the planetarium, which we have in Beaumont.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's part of Beaumont Independent School District, and it's got the dome with all. It's got the night sky as if there were no clouds or light pollution, and we get together, and it's mostly a group of observers. So they have some big, powerful telescopes.
So tell me about one of the best nights that you had there.
Well, recently with the release of the iPhone 11. The camera capabilities of holding the camera up to the eyepiece, and it was on National Observe the Moon Night. So there's lots of kids. My kids are there. Kids love looking at the moon through telescopes because it feels like you're just like you're here looking at trees in the distance or a mountaintop, and you can see all of the craters and the calderas in really super high detail. And when you put an iPhone 11 up to the eyepiece, it's just like your eye. I mean, it's gotten so advanced at taking pictures. And so the photography is great with the night mode. I mean, we were taking pictures in pitch black in night mode, and it looks like daytime.
See, I just keep hearing cha-ching, 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 because I've only got an iPhone 10, so
I'm on the 7.
Wow.
So Will, who's the president of the Astronomical Society, he's on the cutting edge of technology.
Sure,
he's going to have the latest and greatest
absolutely
gear, and so he's prolific in astrophotography. Sometimes he'll set up a camera and just go live stream on Facebook of the moon. And he was the only person who caught a lunar impact in 4K it was during a lunar eclipse. So lots of people were taking pictures. He was the only one that was just filming, just kind of letting it run.
Sure.
And he knew the time that he was filming. And one of his, it was actually the president of the Astronomical Society in Houston said, "Hey, were you filming at this particular time?" And he was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, you need to go back and check your data." And he caught the lunar impact. He's going to be published in papers. Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised like Life magazine or Time magazine's not going to put it there.
He's had some footage on the Science Channel. And, this is just a guy from Groves, that leads our little club.
It's amazing some of the stories that we could tell about just regular folks from this area and some of the amazing opportunities that they've got to do or be a part of,
Yeah, and I wanted to take a minute and kind of get your backstory of being a media magnate.
Oh, well, I won't call me that, but, it started off as a need to have a job, okay? I never planned on being a part of the media, I was a sales manager for a company that sold air purifiers. And I had hired someone, and her fiance was the general manager at Channel 4. Mm-hmm. When the company got bought out, they came in and basically just let us all go. Cleaned house. And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my friend Courtney, who I'd hired, she said, well, Kirby said, come talk to him. He said, he'll give you a job. They're looking for somebody in the sales department. Mm-hmm. Well, the internet was just now starting to become a thing. You know, I mean, not everybody had PCs. Nobody had any of that stuff.
This maybe late 90s?
This was probably 96, 97-ish.
Yeah. Right.
And
dial-up days.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they wanted to start selling their internet, but they didn't want to give it to their other advertising reps to do it to make deals with commercial time. Mm-hmm. They wanted a standalone guy, and I was that guy. Well, I found myself, I kept walking back to the newsroom and the production, and I was just intrigued by it. Long story short, an opportunity came up. They were looking for someone for the weekend, and it was a weekend producer. And I said, let me do it. I'll do it for free until you find someone, because I knew that I could do it, and I just wanted to do it. It was a passion of mine. Mm-hmm. And so they let me do it, and then they offered me the job. So I was doing sales and then working on the weekends. And then I moved into production. I was interested in that, doing the audio. I'm a musician too. So, you know, that kind of, I was more familiar with that, and started working the production side, became a news director, and stayed 7 years at Channel 4. And just kind of worked all facets of it.
Right, yeah.
So, you know.
And so, you know, you've got some experience in, I guess, audio engineering and video.
Well,
all types
that
of
sounds real fancy, but yes, I did work the audio. Like I said, I worked the news side of it, and I worked the production side of it, and I worked the sales side of it. So I kind of caught all facets of it and enjoyed it all, really. Mm-hmm. The same.
And what was the first version of the Brooks Report?
The first version of the Brooks Report was for a little radio station. I don't want to mention their name, but it was for a radio station here locally.
So kind of like a segment, basically.
Yeah, it was 11 to 12. It was a lunch drive, Monday through Friday. And it started out to be a business showcase, where business owners could come in and promote maybe a sale or an event. You know, a lot of chamber folks would come on, and we did that for about 8 months. And I left there, and that's when I was hired by Hearst out of the Houston Chronicle to be an executive editor and sales manager. They were looking for somebody. I still, to this day, I'll tell you the story real quick. Mm-hmm. I was working, and I got a call, and they said, you know, we need someone that is fluent as a editor, basically a writer, but also sells. We need a square that fits in the round hole.
Yeah.
And someone gave me your name. To this day, I have no idea who gave them my name, but so I applied. They asked for my resume. I applied, and they hired me. And so I was down here, and I was over all the Nietzsche publications, Reader's Choice Awards, VIP of Southeast Texas. It included Jasper Newsboy, the Hardin County newspaper, and part of that was to create, the Lakecaster at the time was to create publications as well, which we did. And I left shortly after that one particular publication I'm talking about, but we just didn't. Mm-hmm. You know, just went our separate ways.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know, this is one of the opportunities where I was able to come to the guest, and instead of coming to my studio, and my studio's booked, we share it with several other podcasts in the area, and so we're lucky to, you know, come in here to this great space that was where the Lumberton Ledger got started and ran, and you kind of wrap that up as media changes, because it needs to change. You know, there's a lot of people aren't going to wait around one day a week to read the news.
No.
We're much too short attention span, fast information and content. And you've done a great job of bridging that gap with the live shows all the time. And so you probably felt like, well, if I'm going live on this, and when we're printing a publication 5 days from now, what's the point of printing it? Might as well just take everything to the internet. So,
and there was a benefit to it, Tyler, but it was a very slim demographic we're talking about.
Yeah.
And the change in price, or the price change, you would think would be going down, but it steadily went up.
Yeah, because it's a free paper, so you have to survive off of advertising dollars.
That's
and
correct.
You made an interesting point where most of I even ran a polling station in 2016 during the general election, and then also in the 2017 when it's an off year too. And I can tell you from the election results that, we don't even have a Hardin County Democratic Party as far as a convention. We're pretty much over in the primary of the Republicans, just a bunch of Republicans running against each other. It's fairly what most people consider conservative and Republican, but you mentioned that a lot of those advertising dollars were going to other newspapers and publications other than yours, newspapers that endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, sometimes I say things I shouldn't say.
Well, yeah, but it was very fascinating to hear because, of course, when you wind it up, the Lumberton Ledger, people are upset because they love that publication.
Sure.
And you said, well, why wasn't it supported? It's similar to what the people say in the community about the restaurants that come here. What does everybody complain about?
People beg for options, and then when they get here, it's not supported.
Right.
And being in Southeast Texas, basically all my life, I have moved and came back, but mostly all my life, with that comment that you're referring to, a lot of people kept asking. And I felt like, I'm going to just make a broad statement.
Yeah.
And, we did err on the side of, your goal is to be, bipartisan.
Sure.
As possible. As a journalist, as a newspaper, that's really the goal. Even though it's not that way anymore, that's still the way I try to go about it.
Right.
And a lot of people that know me personally know that kind of where I stand on things. And so I just thought I'd put it out there. I have a lot of business owners, a lot of friends that are business owners, and they've never asked for my advice about where they should advertise or anything of that nature. And so, but for them to understand why we made that call, I had to put it out there. Go put, well, they have more circulation or they print more papers. Well, why they're able to do that? Because of your advertising dollars.
Right.
If you give me your advertising dollars, look what I did on this.
Yeah, Lumberton Ledger may have turned into Hardin County Ledger.
That's right.
If it would have headed in that direction.
And we circulated all of Hardin County, and we did that for a specific reason. We were the only free newspaper. We were the only full color newspaper.
Yeah. The quality was really good.
Thank you. And we had we printed more newspapers than any other Hardin County paper.
Right.
And so
it was full color throughout.
That's right. Yeah. You didn't have to pick between black and white. I never liked that gray, you touch it and you get your hands all dirty. I never liked that.
I mean, imagine going to the store to pick out a TV in 2019 and you've got a section of black and white TVs and color TVs. No, everything is in color, and we still have black and white newspapers.
That's right. And, with our following on Facebook, there's a lot of folks that didn't even know that we printed a paper,
they just followed the feed.
They just followed the news feed. And so it just came down to, I was told a while back, they said, a hobby costs you money and a business makes you money.
Yeah.
So it basically came down to that.
Yeah, the podcast is definitely a hobby at this point.
I understand.
But it's very fun. Has it been interesting being the admin of one of the largest Facebook groups in Hardin County.
Sure. What happened is when I came in, there really wasn't one. It didn't have any traction, I guess you'd say. And so what I did is I took my old Brooks Report Facebook because it already had some numbers there.
Yeah.
And I kind of switched the name over and started pushing it from there and growing it. And, there's another thing about Southeast Texas is folks will tell you or show you or buy into you. They tell you what they want. You can't force it on them. And so I remember the first few times that I did a live feed, it was the greatest thing to these folks. They've never really had their own personal reporter. Yeah, you had the TV stations that would come when it was a big story, but no one would come out here and do a live feed to warn them that, hey, you need to take 69 instead of 96.
Right. Yeah.
And they appreciated that.
Yeah.
So
how were you able to be so many places at once back then?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. I wish I could do that now. I spent a lot of time away from my family.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't regret anything that I did, but I made sacrifices there.
Yeah. And some of it, I guess, you were able to do together, as your husband and wife, which can be good or bad at times, when you're working together in a stressful situation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because, the Ledger would have never been possible the last 4 years and 8 months if it wouldn't have been for my wife.
Yeah, I heard about a story where she was in the hospital for herself.
Oh yeah,
and she had to put together the layout.
That's right.
Never missed a beat.
That's right, because that is not my forte. She laid out every issue that there was, and not a lot of people know that. Everybody sees me on the live feeds,
right,
and they think I do it all, and really, it's kind of the opposite. I got all the glory. But she did most of the work.
Yeah, right.
And she ran this office every day, and
sure,
that sort of thing. And because I have another full-time job, and
right,
and so
you've done a really good job at fact checking, also, because every time there's a new slab or a new plat of dirt come up in Lumberton, there's about 12,000 guesses as to what it's going to be.
Sure,
and you probably get a lot of messages because they think that you're going to have the accurate answer.
I do.
It almost put a spoiler on my, let's see, what was it? 2016 April Fool's joke that I played on the entire
That
city.
Was great, Tyler. I mean, because it had me scratching my head.
So if the listeners haven't heard, there's this undying love for Lumberton residents to rally together to get a brick and mortar Chick-fil-A in Lumberton. And this is, a couple years before we tried the little food truck idea.
Right.
So they were literally begging for it. I mean, it was so ingrained in the emotion that there could be a Chick-fil-A, the possibility of a Chick-fil-A. So there was some land clearing going on, and there was some dirt, and there was no signage, and people hadn't really figured out what it was going to be quite yet. There wasn't any permits that had been pulled. And now it's the Burger King, but it was next to Best Med, and I knew the guys, that run Best Med, buddies, and we're on the board of the Lumberton Chamber of Commerce together, me and Scott Haggard, and I had some professional signs made locally. And
I always thought you stole them from Orange or something.
They swore me to secrecy, the sign place.
Yeah.
But I shopped local. And they thought it was hilarious.
Gotcha.
They thought it was hilarious as well. They encouraged it. And so it had the official Chick-fil-A logo and said "Coming soon, Chick-fil-A." And I made 3 of them just for good measure, just to kind of about around midnight, covert op, stuck them in the ground, and wake up. April Fool's. It was a Sunday morning.
Sure.
And I kid you not, I saw people sharing it as they're going to church, saying my prayers have been answered.
Absolutely.
And then I saw several publications.
There was some shouting going on that morning at church.
Yes. And I'm just sitting at home just watching it unfold into hundreds and thousands. It was probably the only thing that's gone viral, I guess, for me. And real quick, someone brought you. They probably tagged you 20 times, and you were able to kind of dispel it. It's not going to be a Chick-fil-A, and then people were upset in a funny way because they realized what day it was. They realized it was April 1st.
I remember that morning very well, Tyler, because I was like, because your words, your credibility, and everything, and and I knew the sources that had told me what it was going to be, and I was like, they didn't do this to me, did they? I was like, surely not. But it wasn't too long that I bought into. Okay, this is a bad April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
That was great. I loved it. I did. Yeah.
It was a fun way to prank an entire town. But speaking of an entire town, we're coming up on 2020, which is going to be another census.
Yes.
And even though we have global listeners, I'm kind of painting myself into a corner, talking a lot about Lumberton. So hopefully people can, find a way to appreciate this. It's one of the fastest growing communities in Southeast Texas.
That's right.
I think the population from 2010, which is still on our sign out there, this was around 11,000 people. Well, did you know that the Lumberton Municipal Utility District, which is a water company,
sure,
they serve an area outside the city limits, of course. They have around 30,000 customers.
That's right.
And that's not individual people. That's 30,000 households. How many people live in those households?
Yeah.
Times 30,000.
Yeah. It's quite a lot.
I can't imagine what the 2020 census is going to be. It's still going to pale in comparison of the people that are in what I would call the community, because one of the largest subdivisions in our city is actually outside the city limits. The Westwood area over where I live too. The Westwood Village is number 1, number 2, number 3.
Right.
I think just
there's a number 3 now. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I think just Westwood by itself is around 400 rooftops.
Okay.
So, it's exponential growth, and we're able to do all that without a city property tax. This city survives off of sales tax dollars alone. So when people see similar businesses popping up and they want that variety, well, the city welcomes any business owner that's willing to take a risk and provide sales tax dollars for the city. It's amazing that we're able to have a police department and a fire department at all.
That's right.
Without city property tax. And we're fortunate that we don't have that additional tax. We have no drainage district tax, which sometimes people complain about the drainage issues and say the city needs to do this, the county needs to do this. Well, there isn't. You would have to create an additional taxing entity in order to have some of those services, or have a city pool or a splash pad, things of that nature.
And there's liabilities that come with those things,
right?
And so there's pros and cons in every city.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this just a few days ago that, there are more amenities that I wish we had here, but I wouldn't trade Lumberton for the way it is right now.
Right.
And you were talking about the census, and I'll tell you, based off the traffic on social media and the houses that are popping up left and right, I have a feeling our census is going to double or triple coming up. It's a growing city, and I still think businesses are still, they usually try to do a 5-year plan. They look at the numbers. And so I think once we have the census come out, they're probably going to be more encouraged to bring their business here. They just want to make sure it can be supported.
Yeah, I hear people complain about too many car washes. I think the car wash owners are the smartest of the bunch.
Absolutely.
Have you ever driven through the school and seen the student parking lot?
Right.
There's students with $50,000 trucks.
That's right. Yeah, I don't drive a $50,000 truck. And about that, convenience is everything for me, and time. And so if I know if I'm pulling out of here, I can go right here and wash my car. If I'm leaving my house, I can go right there and wash my car. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like options.
Sure. Yeah, you don't have to support the same one over and over. There's many to choose from.
That's right. And capitalism is a beautiful thing, Tyler.
Right.
People ask all the time, well, why would a business bring in the same type of business? Well, you know what? Because they see 3 other businesses being successful and maybe crowded all the time, and they think they can make money. Yeah. And they're the ones putting up the risk.
If you go to any donut shop in town, about 30 minutes before they close, they're plumb out.
That's right.
Of all the good stuff.
That's
because every day, and I think a lot of it, we have some pretty early start times for school.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have young ones, sometimes you're going from one side of town to the other for drop-off, and there's not a lot of time for breakfast. I think a lot of people are taking advantage of the convenience.
Sure. Yeah, I have 5 kids, so I've been to this school, and that school at the same time. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Speaking of school, we got the bond passed. And
that's right.
We're going to make some upgrades. We're going to move the middle school back to the other side of town, so we have middle school and high school together,
right?
And add some additional. It was either pass the bond or go to school in portable buildings.
That's true, and they still might with the construction that's going to be happening. But you know what? There's a light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I kept hearing talk about that, whether or not it was enough. I think folks would have even voted for even more.
I think so. People at the end, I did hear that there would be support for, should have asked for more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that we were able to pass that amount.
Because like you said, with that growth rate that we're having,
because it's especially at the younger ages, Lumberton seems to be more of a, if the average age is a younger family, you're able to get into a starter home. My house, was built in 2005. It was brand new. It was under $100,000.
Nice.
Now the value has gone up significantly since then, but back then, tons of families that are in their 20s and 30s that are buying their first home are able to get something brand new for an affordable mortgage.
Right.
They're having kids that are in the early childhood and the primary. Those are the grades that are really overcrowded. Yeah.
I agree.
Have you gotten on any other platforms such as Twitter and Instagram?
I am on. Well, I have one.
Yeah.
I have a Twitter and I have an Instagram, but
I would guess that Twitter has minimal traction around here.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of Twitter users.
Yeah,
walking
there's
around
most
here.
people that don't even have it.
I love Twitter.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of my business and what I'm passionate about. But I don't think not everybody wants to just see news updates all the time.
Right.
And I do. So I love Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't use it because I don't think there are Twitter users here.
Yeah. I'm mostly consuming on Twitter. I'm mostly reading.
Right.
It's mostly celebrities talking back and forth to each other.
Absolutely.
And that's not me.
Yeah.
So, on Facebook, we get to be the celebrity.
That's right. Facebook famous,
Yeah.
On Twitter, though, I will say, so I don't follow any celebrities. I think all mine are like governors and senators and that type of thing.
Yeah. Right,
Just
right.
Check them out.
Yeah. Recently, I went to, because I spend a lot of time in Beaumont due to my work. I work downtown and spend a lot of time.
Wait, you just had a change of careers. I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me about that.
So I was in technology sales for many years and made a change to Comfort Controls, which we design and install building automation systems and HVAC controls. Most of your larger buildings, all the major, big churches in Beaumont, some of the towers that are 10-story downtown, they're all controlled by a central computer system, with schedules and timers and overrides for HVAC and lighting. So we design and install those systems.
Nice.
And then we also do that for offshore marine and industrial. Those are some exciting clients because they're usually 24 hours. They can't go down. They need reliable systems.
So you're out trying to get these corporations to buy in?
Yeah, I'm networking with engineers, mostly mechanical engineers, architects, general contractors, and other mechanical contractors like other air conditioning companies, because not every air conditioning company has their own controls division.
Sure.
So we work with all of them.
Okay.
And so with the plan and spec, like a new construction, I'm trying to network with the architect and the mechanical engineer or the general contractor to use me versus, maybe a company out of Houston or a bigger city. But we go all the way from Houston to Louisiana, and it's fun. I made the change because I went from a sales team to being one of the only sales reps, and
Gotcha.
so I can kind of grow that business.
Sure.
My general manager has been very busy developing the marine offshore sector, and so I've been tasked with increasing the commercial part
Nice.
Which would be the the down the street
Yeah.
business. Yeah. And so I'm really having a good time with that. One of my best accomplishments was going into a completely different industry where obviously I was hired because of my public speaking abilities
Sure.
and presence in a conference room to give a presentation or a PowerPoint.
Absolutely.
I just needed to learn the material. So once I learned the material, you can imagine it can be intimidating to be in a room full of engineers or contractors in Houston, and we're talking in a company that general contractors that do billions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's $1 billion company, and to have 10 of them in the room and give a PowerPoint presentation and answer questions, and none of them could tell that I just started in May. They think I've been doing it for years.
You brought up your public speaking ability, and I remember, I guess it was a Lamar. You were asked to come and speak to some Lamar students, and you put out
it was the seniors of the engineering department,
and that was some really great advice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was like, that's pretty good, Tyler.
Over the years, I've thought of kind of 10 or 15 bullet points that should be taught to seniors in high school and seniors in college that are just not in standard curriculum.
Right.
They're life lessons that you really don't find in textbooks. And I've kind of crafted that into a speech that I've been invited to kind of give year over year to BISD through the Chamber of Commerce and any other. And once I heard they were graduating seniors for college, I gave them the same speech as well, because it definitely applies. There's even some adults that have heard say, I need to hear some of that too. But it was really exciting because I told these engineers, I said, look, you guys are going to go far and beyond me in this room. When you make it big, I want you to reach out to me, remember me, especially if you end up working for NASA or SpaceX.
Right.
Well, it wasn't but a few months, because they were graduating right after my speech, and one of them found me on Facebook and messaged me and said, hey, I was in that group that you spoke. You told us to reach out to you when we make it. I just got a job at the Goddard Space Flight Facility for NASA, working on.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I was super excited to have that young
Makes
man
you feel
reach out.
good.
Mm-hmm. It did. Yeah.
So.
Certainly must have had some takeaways. If he, if I had a job like that, the last thing I would probably remember was somebody that spoke to me back in college. But I was proud that he reached out.
Well, that's when you made a good impression.
So what? Like I was saying, I spent a lot of time in Beaumont for business networking. Recently went to some events in Beaumont that were held in conjunction with the city. Oktoberfest at Rogers Park. Craft Beer Fest at the Event Center. Now, we're in a little bit of a different predicament here in Lumberton, where we have a city ordinance that says we can't have alcohol at city parks, even for a special occasion. Now, day to day, of course, I understand. Now, Beaumont had that same ordinance previously, but they changed it to have those events, and those events have been killing it.
Sure.
What's your thoughts on Lumberton? Do you see that happening in the future? I don't think with the current council it will happen. It may be several generations later.
Sure.
Now and the reason it's a slippery slope is because the community we live in used to be completely dry. We live in a community where you couldn't go to Walmart and get a beer.
Sure.
We didn't have beer at the gas stations. We didn't have.
Everybody would head over Pine Island Bayou and buy beer there,
Right. So you'd have to go to that last gas station before you leave Beaumont.
Sure.
Or go to Kuntz, I guess, right?
That's right. And, I spent almost 15 years in Jefferson County, working in news and TV, radio, print. And I've only been in Hardin County, even though I always lived here. Coming in, it was like meeting these folks for the first time, and it really was. I lived here, but everything I did was in Jefferson County.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, after getting to know the council, they have a love for the city.
Right.
And they want to, I guess they feel like, and I don't want to speak for them or put words in their mouth, but I think they feel like people are moving here for a reason without those things. And on the same token, you can look and you can say, well, all of our growth is coming from somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's probably coming from Beaumont, Jefferson County, Mid-County, other areas.
Right.
And so when that census does come out, that influx of folks are going to be, I'm going to use the term transplant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's not a lot of Lumberton citizens in 2019 that
that's right.
were born in Lumberton or
that's right.
went to kindergarten. There's a few, but most of us moved here from somewhere, myself included.
Right. And so, there's only a few of us, because I remember when that population sign was only like 2,000 and something.
Yeah.
Exactly. When I was a child. And
I mean, my entire subdivision used to be the woods.
That's right.
We have a pretty regular round of exterminators come through because that land used to be completely wooded, and we had a big problem with spiders that took a while to get out just because we took over their land. It was theirs before it was us, I guess.
Right. I live in a neighborhood called Boykin. It was really one of the first, I guess, little subdivisions.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember hunting there as a child, and Keith Road, that's really came up a lot. And I know I'm probably not speaking to your broad audience right now with the names of streets, but I'll just say that, that's really come up a lot too. We knew when it rained, we could go down there and go fishing,
right.
And it used to have another name, and it was that for a reason, but you can edit that out.
Even the original name of Lumberton was tree related.
Sure, absolutely. They used to float lumber down, and it used to go out. But yeah, are you going to edit this? No. Okay.
We're rolling.
We're rolling. Good.
Unless you end up saying something that we have to think about later.
Okay.
There's only maybe one or two where I've had to do that, where I had a buddy, he's a cybersecurity expert, but he still works closely with the government. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about Edward Snowden. And after the fact, he didn't think about it at the time, but he kind of talked to his boss, and he was like, yeah, we should probably take that out. And so we went back.
Right.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I've had those situations where, after during Hurricane Harvey, we had it approved to where we could talk to some of the Coast Guard members. Mm-hmm. And they had to go up the ranking, and someone that walked in on our live feed started saying something that, you shouldn't have said.
Gotcha.
And I had to go and delete that real quick. Yeah. So I've had some of those moments too.
Yeah, and I don't usually go live just because I feel like, and you going live is different because it's an immediate need. It's a news.
Sure.
I never really go live on the podcast because I think it feels like network TV, where it's like, tune in Tuesday at 8/7 Central. Well, I don't want to. I want it on demand. Right. So I want my listeners to be able to listen to it in the car on their way to work in the morning, or when they're drinking coffee on a Saturday morning on their porch, or watching on YouTube at night. And so I just put it out there recorded.
Right. Yeah. I go live, and even if there's not a need for it, because I'm so raw. Yeah. I don't. I am who I am, and people either love me or they don't. Type of thing, and so it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna gaff. I'm gonna mess up. I'm not gonna speak clearly. It's an old saying of mine. I have a face for radio and a voice for print. And I'm not good at any of them. So
and you've done a great job on the live feeds without any formal training as a news anchor or going to college for journalism or anything like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to implement some of those things that I've learned in TV and radio and that instantaneous right now things. I wanted to incorporate it, and social media gave me the ability to do that.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten the screen time report on your phone? Some of the new
it's bad.
What does it say?
No, it's bad. I mean, it's really bad. I don't even want to say it, but I just leave it up, and that's what I tell my wife anyway. I just walk away.
But it's a tool. You're not playing games.
Right.
You're not over there playing Snake or watching YouTube videos. You're using it as a
hold
communication.
on. I found this group about snakes, and I start dreaming about snakes sometimes, but I'm trying to figure it out now. I feel like I go identify a snake if I see one, but I got kind of involved. You said snake.
Yeah.
I like those snake
They're
groups.
probably going to start tagging you in the groups now because, every time someone kills a snake in their yard, they say, well, what was this? And then you have the guy, that's not a poisonous snake. Why'd you chop his head off? And
it's not poisonous, it's venomous.
Yeah.
It's not venomous.
There's a lot of PhDs out there on YouTube. You've got the legal experts, the snake experts, the know-it-alls.
Yeah. I love them, man. I like to hear people's opinions.
There's a lot of funny people out there. There's some hilarious people in the comments.
And it's funny that you said that because I always know when you say something, it's going to be intelligent. When you and I'm always scared too at the same time because you have a great intellect and you're well rounded. And it's like, oh God, what did Tyler just say on my post?
Oh, right. When you get a notification, yeah.
But
I'm also
clever.
I also try to be funny, and sometimes people may not know if I'm being funny or sarcastic, and I've tried to be less sarcastic lately because it's because in print you don't know that I'm being funny. Because I had friends that I would mess with them about their rustic farmhouse decor. Kitchens that have a sign that say gather, laundry rooms that have a sign that say laundry, signs above their bed that say live, laugh, love. And one of them kind of called me out on it, like private message. It was like, look, if you don't like, they were kind of letting me have. And I said, oh, hold on. Like I was literally just being funny because this is like meme culture.
Sure.
Like if you're on, not so much on Facebook, but like Twitter and Reddit gets memes like months before Facebook does. So like I was being funny in that regard, like middle class fancy, but my goal is to make everybody happy. So I didn't mean for that to be a rift between us, So I try to be a little bit, try to be nice to everybody. Positive vibes only. That's
and I've been guilty of not putting just positive vibes out there, but it's something that you learn because, like you said, with text, people can misread, the intent of what you're saying.
Sure.
And so I've learned to be real careful, and that's where emojis come into play. I don't use emojis generally when I'm just texting folks that I know that understand my personality and the way I think. But, sometimes when you're dealing with a broad audience, you've got to use that little extra ha 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 emoji.
Yeah, this text looks mean. I better put LOL at the end.
Right. Yeah.
And you seem like a pretty laid back, chill dude, but is your anxiety high?
No, not really. I mean,
and you probably have thick skin. You probably don't let it get to you for the most part. Maybe we all do at times.
You know when it does.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm pretty open and about my feelings. I just, if something gets to me, pretty much everybody knows.
Yeah.
I put it out there. And, but for the most part, I am a laid back guy, just, I don't buy into the hoorahs.
Yeah.
I don't get into, I'm just me.
Is there any tips that you have on time management of having a full-time,
I wish I did,
have a full-time career, several kids, wife, and then also these many side hustles and hobbies?
Sure. So,
do you get, what's your average night of sleep?
Probably about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
And it's usually,
so more on the shorter end.
Yeah. But that's okay. If I get 4, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm not a napper. I don't have time for naps, but, going to work and dealing with if there's something that I need to get out to the community. So it's like 2 jobs in one, because that's an all day thing. And then, you have children too. So homework can be crazy. My wife just went back to school, so she's doing homework too,
Okay.
And of course she's in that upper level. She's a mathematician, so
okay.
She does one problem. It could be 4 pages long and take her 4 hours to do it.
Right, yeah.
She's got to prove why math is math type thing. And, that sort of stuff. And
I get a little upset about homework because I feel like there's enough time to get it done.
I'm with you.
Yeah, they're in school a good chunk of the time.
I'm like, what were you doing the last 8 hours?
Yeah, and there's a lot of wasted time. in transition periods that they could tweak, but not to criticize our teachers, they're doing a great job.
Oh no, of course not.
And they probably don't. There's teachers that don't agree with homework either. It's not something they can control, but also they have to prepare you for college, because college definitely has homework.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's part of it.
That's right. And but to go back to your question as far as time, I would say that you make time for the right things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really important. And, my family comes first, and then what's actually providing your livelihood second.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other stuff is kind of somewhere out there wherever you can fit it in.
Yeah, exactly. I try to schedule these on days that I don't have my kids, because I split time between myself and their mother 50-50,
right,
where everything even. So I try to make sure that I'm not doing anything extracurricular, because it's their time and they have sports in the afternoon and activities, and I want to be 100% all in for them.
Right.
And so I've kept myself on a schedule of one episode a week, and it's gone pretty good so far.
That's awesome. And you're doing a great job. I think I've watched all your episodes, really.
Oh, wow.
Not their entirety, but I've tried to watch them.
Yeah, it's a big commitment to go start to finish on an episode.
Right.
I mean, there's dozens of podcasts that I've probably partially listened to.
Like, if folks have made it this far in this podcast,
they're dedicated listeners. I don't know how, but there's 19 people in Germany that faithfully listen to this podcast, and Guam, Jamaica, and Mexico. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It varies depending on the guest and maybe their last name a little bit. Salvador, of course, probably picked up the listener in Mexico, and then Germany may be a combination of my last name and then also the episode that Jillian was on. Her last name is Fertig, and that's an uncommon American.
Oh, yeah.
It's more of a German name, and then Troutman is a German name, so they may have just found it by accident on a Google search, because they would have to be English speaking in order to, I don't have closed caption or anything like that, so or Google Translate, maybe they're doing that, I'm not sure.
So but moving forward with your podcast, I mean, where do you go from here? What do we hope to see from you coming up? I mean,
I'm hoping that I can get to the point where, I started with my circle of friends and worked my way out, and I've had several guests where I'm meeting them the first time sitting across from a table. So you and I, we knew each other. It's a little bit easier.
Sure.
I know what I'm going to talk about. There's some that I go in blind because I'm like, wow, this person is interesting. I hit them up in their DMs, and they agree to come on. And we're getting to know each other over the course of that hour, and they're telling us. I mean, for Halloween, I interviewed a witch, like a real.
I saw that.
A real life witch.
I saw that.
And I knew who she was, but I didn't know anything about what she was going to talk about. And, it was an interesting turn where she's like, look, this isn't a religion. I'm not a devil worshiper. I'm into like natural healing. I was like, okay, that's cool. I see where you're going with this. And we mainly talked about the history of Halloween, which is exciting. I try to, get into that a little bit. But I would like to get to the point where, and I did this on the veteran episode that came out today. It's Veterans Day. This will come out 2 Saturdays from now, but today happens to be Veterans Day, and I was able to speak with David Hearn, who is a Vietnam veteran that owns the Book Nook Inn.
Yes.
And he's an accomplished author. He was involved in one of the bloodiest battles of 1967, the Battle of Zombo. And that was somebody that reached out to me through direct message, through DMs on Facebook that I did not know, and said, hey, we've been following your podcast. It looks really interesting. We're the owner of Book Nook Inn. I was like, oh, I know who you are. You just didn't know who I was. But and I said, coincidentally, I was wanted to do a Veterans Day episode and was able to get him on. And so that was just somebody that reached out to me, and that was kind of the goal, is I want people to start reaching out to me to come on.
Sure.
You experience that with the paper. You get people that, hey, you should do a story about this. You should report that. And then maybe I can get to the level of traveling people to come, where people from other states are reaching out. Because if you look at you can look at your metrics on the map of the downloads, and it's probably in 17 different states. Some guy in Detroit, messaged me because he was a fan of astronomy during the Will Young episode, the guy that's the president of the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas. So if I can get some interesting people from other states that feel like it would be worth their time to travel down here and be a guest on an episode, I would really feel happy about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, the podcast is kind of a triple threat when it comes to media. you've got the audio, and then you've got the video.
Sure.
And then if you can get someone or a computer to transcribe some of these episodes, then you have copy, and you could eventually put it together into a book. And it would be really cool to have 100 episodes and take like my top 20 guests, my top 20 episodes, kind of transcribe them, take the highlights and put them into a book. And you've got myself that would obviously promote the book, but then you've got those 20 individuals that are promoting it just as hard because they want to get that content out there. It's about them, and they're branding themselves. I have a lot of people in the business community that are personal branding and want to get their name out as well.
Sure.
And it's probably the only way I would ever be able to write a book. I don't have a crazy story in my past of overcoming odds or anything like some of my guests have.
Right.
Like Damian West, who's the first NCAA quarterback to ever receive a life sentence in prison. And then I just found out today that he accepted, he's gone from one side of the criminal justice system to the other. He graduated this past May with a master's in criminal justice from Lamar. And he just found out today that he accepted a professor position at the University of Houston downtown.
Wow, that's amazing.
To teach a class in the criminal justice department on prisons. And it's a Wednesday night class or a Wednesday class, and the rest of it's online. And that was his reason for getting the master's degree, is he wanted to go into teaching, because part of his parole was he is determined to give back to the community. Right. And he's done that many times over with the talks that he's done, and now with the teachings. It's it's an amazing story.
He speaks with emotion too, and I guess that can only come from his experience,
right?
And he's very passionate, and a lot of things. I think we're sitting here having a conversation about him, but I think living that life and going through that, it's going to be a remarkable influence on those guys that he's going to be teaching to, and
I'm fascinated by things that I can't experience myself. Things like his situation or military situations. I'm one of those people that I watch all the shows and maybe read all the books and podcasts on military, but I'm kind of too old to go do it for myself at this stage in the game. And I'm lucky to have those men and women that did it for me, so I could have these freedoms to talk to you today.
Absolutely.
But it's something that fascinates me because I'm an outsider looking in on that world.
There's this guy locally, and I don't know if you've seen his Facebook page, but I think it's called Tattered Veteran.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Right.
And
I'm familiar with it.
And he says some things. This is a guy who has been on the front lines and served in the military and in wars and battles, and then he came out and he dedicated his life to law enforcement. And his way of thinking is different, but once you hear it, it's like, well, wow, I never thought about it that way. And we couldn't think about it that way because we haven't experienced what he experienced, and I just thought it was unique.
Yeah, sure. Well, what's the next big thing for Adam Brooks?
I just want to have some fun. I want to be here if anybody needs me, but for the most part, I think Lisa and I are just going to do the Brooks Report thing, and just have fun with it. Do giveaways and ask polling questions. I'm fascinated by human nature, humanity in general, and
we are some weird individuals, humans. Humans in general. We were talking about that just the other day on another podcast. That the ultimate punishment that they give humans in prison is putting them in solitary, where they're isolated by themselves and don't have any human contact. And they want so bad to get out of that solitary and be around other people, even though those other people are criminals.
Sure.
They would prefer being there than by themselves, alone with your own thoughts. We're some weird
I've
species.
watched this show called Alone. Have you seen that?
Is it kind of like a
they go and they drop these guys off in the most desolate areas in the world, and the one who stays the longest wins. And a lot of people just give up because they have no interaction.
Yeah, it's probably maddening. Yeah. And because you see people be funny on social media and say, "Oh, I hate people. I'd rather be on an island or in the mountains. I just want to watch Netflix all day." Well, that would be great if you have lots of human stimulation that's annoying, that'd be great for like a week.
Sure.
After that, you're ready to.
And they speak that in terms of, they have an option. Mm-hmm. They've never been forced to not have that option.
Yeah, sure.
So
to have those freedoms taken away.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Man, well, that was great. Let's wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to tell the folks in Germany, Mexico, Guam, and Jamaica?
Not really. I think I'm from there according to my 23andMe DNA test.
What did it say? Did you have 1% African?
No, I didn't.
None at all?
It was all European, mostly European and Germania. Yeah, Germania.
Does Brooks have a specific region that particular?
It's a little place next to Scotland, and it was known as Brookshire.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how the name.
Yeah, because names usually came from something you did or someplace you came from.
Or somewhere you lived by, because I think they recognized it by a landscape.
Yeah, because at some point, if you go further back, they were just making that stuff up. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of cool. But
yeah, I think my last name was spelt differently, and during kind of that World War II era, and maybe before that, we started Americanizing names because you didn't want them to sound foreign. There's a lot of American pride back then, and so I think in German it would be more like Trautmann, maybe with two N's. If you remember Rambo, there was Colonel Troutman.
Yeah.
But it was spelt different, and the way I spell is a little bit more Americanized.
There was always a quote in that movie that I loved. It's when Rambo had just came in, and the sheriff approaches him and tells him, "We're not going to have any trouble in this little town." And all hell breaks loose.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, I think he was a Vietnam veteran in that movie. Yeah, I was talking about that with David, that it's almost kind of like the forgotten generation. You've probably been at multiple events for veterans where there's a living World War II veteran, and they're treated like a god. They're like
absolutely
living legends. And then we grew up in the Gulf War and the Afghan War, and a lot of those heroes they've gone on to write books, make movies. They've had movies portrayed about them. SEAL Team 6. I mean, they're like Hollywood movie stars now. Yeah. And then Vietnam is just like this section that's there's so many of them that are homeless. They're in bad health. They can't get help from the VA. It's weird.
Well, I wonder if a lot of that is partly due to what was happening in the country at the time.
Yeah, there was a lot of political unrest with, David said that that was kind of the last time people were drafted, so they didn't have a choice. And he told me that the voting age was 21. Mm-hmm. So you had these men and women, or mostly at that time it was mostly men. They were 18 and 19, and they could not vote, they could not drink, but they could get drafted and go get put on the front lines.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people had a sideways opinion about that.
Sure. Yeah. I've watched a lot of documentaries about that, but yeah. But they still shouldn't have been taken away from what those guys did, their duty.
Right.
That they went out and performed. But.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're welcome back anytime.
Well, thank you.
I guess I'm welcome back in your space here. You have to, check out the studio one day and tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, Adam C. Brooks on just they say I can't add any more friends.
Yeah, so you need do you have a public page yet, or just the personal page?
Yeah, I've got a public page. It's called The Brooks Report.
Okay, so that would be the one that you guys need to follow. If you're a new subscriber of this, then go to that for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Tyler, for having me on. I'm kind of under the weather, but we made it through, and I enjoyed the conversation. So
yeah, man. Wintertime's coming up. I think that cold front's coming in like right now.
Yeah,
I'm running off of positive vibes and elderberry and vitamins.
There's an immune booster that I've been taking every day. It's like a gummy, but
I think it was Hulk Hogan. He said, "Say your prayers and eat your vitamins." Right?
That's right. Hopefully you have electricity when we leave here.
Yeah, we'll see. We're running off a battery. We're running on battery power. My house is solar powered, but it doesn't do me good right now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Anytime. All right. See you guys later.